We're staying on top of the biggest story of the day. A federal appeals court grants a stay of execution for 2 Oklahoma prisoners on death row. John Grant was set to be put to death tomorrow. The court also granted a stay of execution for Julius Jones. News on 6 was there the last 2 times Oklahoma put a prisoner to death.
The state, of course, has not executed a prisoner in 7 years. News on 6's Tess Maune was in the room during the last 2 executions, including the flawed execution of Clayton Lockett. That was back in 2014, and that gained a lot of international attention. Tess, thank you for taking the time to speak with us about this pretty serious topic today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So a lot of us just really can't imagine what it's like to be in the room and witness something that drastic and powerful. What was the process like of being a media witness to that?
Of course, you know, as a journalist, we cover the story at the beginning and we want to cover it to the end. And our job as journalists are to be the eyes of the people in that execution viewing room. We want to be there to find out if they have any last words and what those last words might have been, or to be there if something goes wrong. So as journalists, we can hold the state accountable for anything that happens. And that was kind of the case with Clayton Lockett. Something definitely went wrong in that execution chamber that day. As a media witness, we're drawn. They draw names. So just because you're a journalist doesn't mean you're automatically going to get to be a witness. And once your name is drawn, they take you back behind the prison in McAllister. You go into a room and you wait before you're taken into the viewing room. And in that period, you could hear inmates pounding on their cells. It's kind of like that before the final walk for the person who is about to be executed. They don't give you, or you cannot take any, you can't take your phone, you can't have a watch, and they give you your paper to take your notes on, and they give you your pen. So these were my notes from Clayton Lockett and Charles Warner. So we didn't have a lot of room to write, but time is important, and there's a clock in the execution chamber where we were able to see the clock ticking as the process started.
I would imagine when you go to this, you don't expect something to go wrong, because this has happened before, so you expect things to go as planned, but that of course did not happen with Clayton Lockett. What was it like being in the room when that went terribly wrong?
Well, and that was the first execution I had ever been a witness for, and I had talked with some of our colleagues or coworkers about what that might be like. And so I knew pretty quickly when things started to kind of go the wrong way that it wasn't right. And I was with another person, was sitting next to me, who had been a witness before and said, this is not normal. Clayton Lockett was coming off, his shoulders came off of the table that he was on, and you could see that he was kind of writhing in pain. So it was very clear that this was not a normal execution. And then once the blinds went down in the execution chamber, we knew that there was something wrong. And then the director of DOC came in and kind of went over what had happened.
About how long was that process did that take from the time that you were brought into the room to when they closed the blinds?
17 minutes.
17, okay.
And we were truly watching the minutes go by because we were keeping a close eye on the clock. And of course, it wasn't until after that I realized how important it was that I had taken the notes that I did and had the minute by minute account of what was going on in that chamber.
And then I don't know if people realize Charles Warner was also supposed to be executed that night, but that was delayed for 9 months following what happened earlier with Clayton Lockett. And then you were again drawn to be a witness for that one. How was that different from Lockett's execution?
Well, a lot had changed by that point. One of them being that in Clayton Lockett's execution, 12 media witnesses were allowed in. In Charles Warner, they had changed the protocols, they had renovated the execution chamber, and only 5 media witnesses were allowed in. And that one went as a normal execution would. At the very beginning, he did say that he was poked 5 times and it felt like his veins were on fire, that acid, something like that. But there was never anything determined that anything went wrong with Charles Warner's execution. And it took about the same amount of time from beginning to end. I think it was maybe 16, 17 minutes before he just it looked like he fell asleep.
Yeah, but just very different from the first
It
one.
was
you
a much
witnessed
different
to the second.
experience for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Tess, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about it. We appreciate it.